Get them to stop. Now. Boss Kwan's voice cut through the symphony of medical alarms like a blade through silk. His hands gripped the edge of the hospital bassinet, knuckles bleached white against his tan skin. The twin babies inside writhed weakly, their cries reduced to thin, desperate mewls that made the monitors scream louder. Sir, they're rejecting every formula we've tried. The doctor's voice shook. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the climate-controlled VIP suite. Their vitals are dropping. We've attempted 6 different. I don't pay you for excuses. Kwan's words came out quiet, deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. Fix this. Around them, 5 armed guards stood at attention, hands resting on holstered weapons. They watched their boss, the most feared man in the city, reduced to helpless fury by 2 infants barely 48 hours old. The twins' lips had taken on a blue tinge. Their breathing came in shallow, irregular gasps. Their mother had died bringing them into this world. Now they seemed determined to follow her out of it. Down the hallway, 3 floors below the VIP wing, Lena Carter pushed her mop across linoleum that never seemed to get clean. Her back ached. Her hands were raw. She'd been at the hospital for 11 hours, would work 3 more before she could go home to Marcus. 4 years old and spending another night with Mrs. Chin next door because Mama had to work the double shift again. The mop bucket's wheels squeaked as she moved past the elevator banks. Then she heard it. Or rather, she heard the absence of it. Lena's hands stilled on the mop handle. She'd grown up in a house full of children. 7 siblings, half of them younger than her. She knew baby cries the way musicians knew notes. And that sound filtering from the VIP wing 3 floors up wasn't crying anymore. It was the silence before the fall. Her twin sister had made that sound once, 23 years ago. Lena had been 5 years old, too small to help, only big enough to remember. Sarah had stopped crying at 2 a.m. By 3 a.m., she was gone. Lena dropped the mop. She didn't think, didn't plan. Her feet carried her to the stairwell, up 3 flights, past the security checkpoint where the guard was distracted by his phone. Her uniform was stained with bleach, and God knew what else. Her hair was coming loose from its bun. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who cleaned up other people's messes for minimum wage. But when she burst through the VIP suite door, none of that mattered. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna and comment where you're watching from. Those babies are going into shock. 5 guns clear their holsters in unison. Hands grab her, rough, professional, designed to hurt just enough to make a point. Lena didn't feel it. Her eyes locked on the monitors, on the 2 tiny bodies in the bassinet, on the numbers that were dropping too fast. Get her out. Kwan's voice. Command absolute. Their heart rates. Lena fought against the hands pulling her backward. They're shutting down. They need skin to skin now. They need. I set out. Lena's gaze snapped to him. She saw him then, really saw him. Not just the expensive suit or the dangerous stillness, or the face that had probably ordered deaths before breakfast. She saw a father watching his children die. They're starving for comfort. She was screaming now over the guards, over the alarms, over every instinct telling her to shut up and survive. The formula isn't enough. They need what they'd get from their mother. They need. One twin's monitor flatlined. The sound was different from the alarms. Singular. Final. The doctor lunged for resuscitation equipment, hands shaking so badly he knocked over a tray of instruments. The clatter was obscene in the sudden, horrible quiet. There's no time. Lena didn't remember making the decision. Her body made it for her. The same way she'd once thrown herself in front of Marcus when a car ran a red light, the same way mothers throughout history had moved without thinking when their children were in danger. These weren't her children. But they were children, and they were dying, and she was the only one in this room who knew what they needed. She ripped past the final guard. Her fingers found the front of her uniform. Cheap polyester tore easily, 3 buttons skittering across the tile floor. She grabbed both babies before anyone could stop her, before the doctor could start compressions, before Kwan could give the order. She could see forming on his lips. The twin skin was cold against her bare chest. Too cold. She pressed them close, 1 on each side, their tiny bodies fitting against her like puzzle pieces designed by something older than medicine, older than science, One baby, the boy, she thought, though she couldn't be sure, turned his head instinctively. His mouth found her breast, latched on with the desperate strength of the dying. The room froze. 10 armed men. One doctor. Boss Kwan. All of them paralyzed by the sight of this black woman in a torn uniform, half-dressed, cradling Korean mafia airs against her chest while one of them fed. The monitor's scream changed pitch. Steadied. The flat line became a rhythm again. Weak but there. The baby's lips were still blue, but his breathing deepened. The other twin, feeling the warmth and hearing the heartbeat that had been denied them since birth, stopped thrashing. His tiny fist uncurled against her ribcage. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were the monitors recalibrating, the soft suckling noise, and Lena's ragged breathing. She couldn't look up, couldn't face what she'd just done. Her eyes stayed fixed on the babies, watching their chests rise and fall, willing them to keep going. Tears cut tracks down her face. She was thinking of Marcus, alone at Mrs. Chen's, wondering where Mama was. Thinking of Sarah, who never got this chance. Thinking of nothing at all except the 2 fragile lives pressed against her skin. "I've got you," she whispered to them. Her voice broke. "You're safe now." 30 seconds passed. An eternity in crisis time. Kwan's hand had moved to his gun. She'd seen it in her peripheral vision, but now it hung at his side, useless. His face cycled through emotions too fast to track. Shock. Humiliation. Rage. Something else she couldn't name. The doctor found his voice first. "Sir." He was staring at the monitors like they'd performed a miracle. "Sir, their vitals are stabilizing. Whatever she's doing, it's working." Kwan's throat worked. Once. Twice. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly quiet again. But the violence in it had transformed into something else entirely. "What is your name?" Lena forced herself to meet his eyes. They were dark, unreadable, dangerous as black ice on a highway. Behind them, she could see the gears turning, calculating, assessing, deciding her fate. She'd violated his most protected space, touched his children without permission, exposed herself in front of his men. She'd saved his bloodline. Lena. Her chin lifted. The babies were still against her chest, their breathing evening out, getting stronger. "And if you want them to live through the night, I'm not going anywhere." Kwan signaled once. The guards released her, but didn't holster their weapons. The barrels stayed trained on her back, her head, her center mass. Professional. Ready. "You dare to touch my children." Not a question. An accusation that demanded blood. "Explain." "Your children were dying." Lena's voice was steady despite the adrenaline crash hitting her system. The babies were still against her chest, one feeding, one sleeping. She wasn't giving them back. "I'm a mother." That's all the explanation you get. Kwan's jaw tightened. A muscle jumped near his eye, the only indication he was human under all that control. A mother who works as. His gaze swept her stained uniform, her raw hands, the bleach burns on her forearms. A cleaner? A mother who does what she has to. Lena met his stare without flinching. Fear was useless now. She'd already committed the act that would define everything that came next. "I've been working 3 jobs since my son was born." His father walked out before Marcus took his first breath. "I know what it costs to keep a child alive." Something flickered across Kwan's face. Not sympathy, he was too guarded for that. Recognition, maybe. The acknowledgement that survival took forms he'd never had to consider. "You know newborn distress." He wasn't asking. "I lost my twin sister to it." The words came out flat. Lena had learned not to dress trauma in soft language. "I was 5. Sarah was, she stopped crying around 2 a.m. My mama thought she'd finally gone to sleep. By 3, she was gone. I couldn't save her." She looked down at the twins, their perfect vulnerability. "But I could save yours." The doctor cleared his throat. "Sir, if I may, the infants are stable now, but they'll need consistent care through the night. If Mrs. Miss, Lena corrected. If Miss, I'm sorry, I didn't catch. Carter. Lena Carter." The doctor nodded, making a note she suspected would end up in files she'd never see. "If Miss Carter is willing to remain, it would be medically advisable. The stress response they experienced, any further disruption could be catastrophic." Kwon was silent for a long moment. His eyes never left Lena's face, reading her the way men in his position learn to read threats and opportunities.
She wondered what he saw.
A desperate woman? A liability? Someone stupid enough to throw herself into the path of a freight train? You will stay. Not a request. Not quite an order. Something in between. You will care for them until they no longer need you. I have a son. The words burst out before Lena could stop them. Marcus. He's 4. He's alone right now with a neighbor who's probably asleep in front of her TV while he's scared and wondering where I am. Not anymore. Kwon pulled out his phone, typed something with quick, precise movements. Address? Lena's mouth went dry. What are you? Your son will be brought here. Tonight. He'll have a room, meals, education. The best care my money can buy. Kwon's tone was matter-of-fact, discussing a business transaction. You want him safe? He'll be safer in my compound than anywhere else in this city. And when your babies don't need me anymore? Kwon's pause stretched too long. Then we'll discuss your freedom. The unspoken truth settled between them like sediment. She was a prisoner. The bars were made of gold and desperation, but they were bars nonetheless. Her son would be leverage, insurance, a guarantee of her cooperation. But Marcus would eat, would sleep without sirens wailing outside, would go to a school where the teachers showed up. Lena's arms tightened around the twins. I need your word. Marcus stays safe. No matter what happens, no matter what you think of me later, he's protected. You have it. The word of a... She stopped herself. Say it. Danger crept back into his voice. The word of a criminal? A killer? You want to know what I am? Ask my enemies. The ones still alive. The word of a father. Lena's chin lifted again. That's what I'm asking for. Something in Kwon's expression shifted. Softened wasn't the right word. He was still granite, still lethal. But a crack appeared in the facade. Small. Barely there. You have it, he repeated. Then, to the doctor. Clear the room. Get her whatever she needs. If you do the same thing for your child, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna, and tell me where you're watching from. The guards filed out. The doctor stayed long enough to check the twins' vitals one more time, his hands gentle and professional despite the tremor Lena could still see in his fingers. When he left, it was just her and Kwon and the 2 babies who'd somehow survived the impossible. My men will bring your son within the hour, Kwon said. He was looking at his children now, really looking at them. When he arrives, you'll both be moved to the compound. It's 20 minutes from here. Secure. Private. A fortress. Yes. Lena adjusted the babies carefully. The feeding one had fallen asleep, milk-drunk and finally peaceful. His brother was watching her with unfocused newborn eyes, seeing shapes and shadows, not understanding that his life had just been bargained for by a stranger. I'll need clothes. Supplies for Marcus. His stuffed elephant. He can't sleep without it. Make a list. It will be handled. Just like that. Kwon's gaze finally lifted to hers. You just saved my heirs. My organization. My legacy. Nothing is too small a request after that. But his tone suggested there were many things that would be too large. Many boundaries she'd already crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. Lena felt the weight of it. The life she'd had 8 hours ago, cleaning floors and counting pennies, was gone. Whatever came next would be something else entirely. The compound appeared through tinted SUV windows at 11 p.m. Lena held Marcus on her lap. He'd cried when the guards brought him, confused and frightened, but calmed when he saw her. Now he was half asleep, thumb in his mouth, too young to understand why men with guns had come to Mrs. Chen's door. The twins were in car seats beside her, monitored by equipment that looked more sophisticated than most hospital ICUs. A nurse Kwon had hired, young, efficient Korean, sat across from them. She hadn't said a word the entire drive. The compound wasn't what Lena expected. She'd imagined something ostentatious, gold-plated and obvious. Instead, it was traditional Korean architecture wrapped around modern security, high walls disguised as garden features, cameras hidden in eaves, sensors woven into pathways that looked like decorative stone. Beautiful. Inescapable. Mama, why are there men with guns? Marcus whispered as they pulled through the main gate. We're helping someone important, baby. Is he a king? Something like that. The SUV stopped at the main entrance. Doors opened. Hands reached to help her out. Careful, respectful, but still making it clear she had no choice in any of this. Lena clutched Marcus tighter as they were ushered inside. The nursery was on the second floor, 3 times the size of her old apartment. Everything white and sterile and expensive in a way that made her bones ache. Cribs that probably cost more than she made in a year. A rocking chair that looked antique. Windows that showed the garden but were probably bulletproof. "This is where they'll sleep," Quan said from the doorway. He'd followed them in his own car, arriving minutes after. "Your room is connected. The boys' is down the hall. Marcus stays with me." "That's not." "Marcus stays with me." Lena's voice was iron. "That's non-negotiable." Quan studied her for a beat, then nodded.
Fine.
"There's a second bed in your suite. He can stay until he's comfortable." "Until you decide he can't," Lena thought but didn't say. She was learning the rules of this place already. Pick your battles. Know when to push and when to bend. The guards dispersed to their posts. She counted 6 within sight of the nursery alone. The nurse helped her settle the twins into their cribs, showing her the monitoring equipment, the backup systems, the panic button disguised as a light switch. Marcus wandered to the window, pressing his small hands against the glass. "Mama, they have a garden. Can I play there?" "Tomorrow, baby. It's late now." "Will the king let me?" Before Lena could answer, Quan spoke. "The garden is yours. Anytime you want." Marcus turned, eyes wide. In his 4-year-old logic, anyone who lived in a place like this and let him call them a king must be good. "Thank you, Mr. King." The corner of Quan's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost human. Just Quan. The first night was chaos controlled by routine. The twins woke every 2 hours, hungry and disoriented. Lena fed them, changed them, sang the low bluesy lullabies her grandmother had taught her. Songs born in pain and survival, passed down through generations of women who'd done what they had to. At 2 a.m., she was in the rocking chair with both babies when she felt eyes on her. Quan stood in the doorway, silent as a ghost. She wondered how long he'd been there. "They're settling," she said quietly, not stopping her gentle rocking. "What are you singing?" "Old song. My grandmother's grandmother knew it. Before that, probably someone on a ship from Africa. We don't remember the original words, just the melody." Quan stepped into the room, moved closer. His children looked impossibly small against Lena's dark skin, their features delicate and East Asian, hers broad and African. A collision of worlds that should never have touched. "They're mine," he said, but it sounded like a question. "They're yours," Lena confirmed. "And they're going to be okay now. Because of you. Because someone finally gave them what they needed." Quan was silent, watching his son sleep against this stranger's chest. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Quieter. Almost vulnerable. "Their mother. I barely knew her. Arranged marriage. Strategy between families. She carried them out of duty, not desire. When the complications started, she—"
He stopped.
"Started again. She didn't want them. But you do. They're my blood. My legacy. The future of everything I've built." Lena looked up at him. "They're also just babies who need love. Not legacy. Love." The words hung between them. Quan's face was unreadable in the dim nursery light, but something in his posture shifted. The armor cracked wider. "Get some rest," he said finally. "The nurse can take over." "I'm fine." That wasn't a suggestion. But he didn't move to take the babies. Didn't call for the nurse. He just stood there, watching this woman who'd invaded his world and somehow made herself essential in the span of hours. When he finally left, Lena released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Morning brought new complications. Quan's guards had a hierarchy she was only beginning to understand. The head of security was a man named Jean, 40-something, traditional tattoos visible above his collar, eyes that tracked her with open hostility. "She shouldn't be here," he said to Quan in the hallway. His voice carried into the nursery, where Lena was changing the twins. "This is wrong. My sons are alive. That's all that matters. It's weakness. The families will see it as. The families will see what I tell them to see." Jin's jaw clenched. "Yes, boss." But his eyes found Lena through the open door, and the message was clear. "You don't belong here. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. There was another guard, though. Younger than Jean. Softer eyes. He'd helped carry Marcus's belongings up the stairs, careful with the worn stuffed elephant, the mismatched clothes. His name was Min. "Do you need anything, Miss Carter?" he asked when Jean had stalked away. "Just Lena. And no, we're okay. Thank you." Min nodded, hesitated. "I had a daughter. She'd be about your son's age now." The past tense was a wait. "I'm sorry. Rival faction. 5 years ago. They wanted to hurt the boss, so they—" He couldn't finish.
Didn't need to.
"That's why I'll protect you. Both of you. You remind me what we're supposed to be fighting for." He left before Lena could respond, but something in her chest loosened. Not everyone here wanted her gone. Not everyone saw her as contamination. Small mercies in a fortress of gold. By the third day, patterns emerged. The twins thrived. Marcus explored the garden under Min's watchful eye, finding wonder in koi ponds and cherry blossoms. Quan appeared at odd hours, watching from doorways, never quite joining but never quite absent. And the whispers started. Lena heard them in the halls, saw them in the sideways glances from staff. The maids who wouldn't meet her eyes. The cooks who left her meals on trays instead of bringing them in person. Even the kind ones, like Dr. Han, who came daily to check the twins, had a wariness that hadn't been there before. Something was spreading through the compound. A poison that tasted like gossip and smelled like danger. On the fifth night, Lena was settling the twins when she overheard Jean outside the door. He was on his phone, speaking low in Korean. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. The laugh that came after was worse. When he hung up, he noticed her in the doorway. "Problem, Miss Carter?" "You tell me." "No problem at all." But his smile was a knife. "Just updating some associates on the boss's new arrangement. They find it very interesting." He walked away before she could respond, leaving her with the twins and the sinking certainty that whatever protection Quan offered, it wasn't enough. Not against enemies who saw her as the perfect weakness to exploit. "You should rest." Lena didn't open her eyes. The rocking chair creaked softly beneath her weight, both twins finally asleep after an hour of fussing. It was past midnight. Her back ached. Her arms were numb. She'd never felt more awake. "So should you," she said. Quan's footsteps were silent on the nursery carpet, but she felt him enter the way prey feels a predator, some ancient instinct that read threat in the shift of air. Except he wasn't hunting. Not tonight. Tonight, he was just a man standing in a doorway, watching someone care for his children the way he'd never learned to. "Why did you risk your life for children you didn't know?" The question was genuine, not accusatory. Lena finally opened her eyes, found him leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. Out of his suit jacket for once. White shirt rolled to his elbows. Almost human. Because nobody should die without being held. She looked down at the sleeping twins, their perfect vulnerability. Your sons, they just needed to know someone loved them. Quan was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't respond. Then, their mother. The arrangement. I barely knew her. His voice was careful, each word chosen. She carried them out of duty. When the complications started during delivery, she could have fought harder. The doctors said he stopped. Swallowed. She didn't want them. Not really. But you do. They're my blood. My legacy. Everything I've built. They're also just babies who need love. Lena interrupted gently. Not legacy. Love. The words settled between them like a truth neither had permission to speak. Quan's jaw worked. His hands flexed against his biceps. For a moment, she thought he'd leave, retreat into the armor he wore so well. Instead, he moved closer, looked at his sons with something raw and unguarded crossing his face. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. Build an empire, eliminate threats, negotiate deals, that I understand. But this, he gestured at the twins. I have no reference point. Nobody does. You just show up. Keep showing up. Is that what your son's father did? The question could have been cruel. Instead, it was curious. Lena considered deflecting, then decided he'd earned honesty. Marcus's father was good at showing up when things were easy. First smile, first laugh, he was there with a camera. But the 3 a.m. fevers? The bills? The hard parts? She shook her head. He decided legacy without responsibility was better. Left before Marcus turned 6 months. Then he was a fool. Something in Lena's chest tightened.
Yeah.
He was. Quan studied her face, really looked at her for the first time since the hospital. Not assessing a threat or calculating an asset. Just seeing. You're exhausted. Let me call the nurse. I'm fine. You've been awake for 20 hours. So have you. His mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. Stubbornness seems to be your defining trait. Pot, meet kettle. This time he did smile. Brief. Gone almost before it registered. But real. Get some sleep, Lena. That's not a suggestion. But he didn't leave immediately. Stood there watching as she carefully transferred the twins to their cribs, her movements practiced and gentle. When she finally straightened, stretching her sore back, he was still there. Thank you, Quan said. For my sons. For everything. He left before she could respond, but the words echoed long after his footsteps faded. The next morning, Min found Lena in the garden with Marcus. Her son was chasing butterflies between the cherry trees, his laughter bright against the compound's usual silence. She sat on a bench, twins in their double stroller beside her, soaking in the rare moment of peace. Miss Lena. Min approached carefully, respectful of her space. May I? She gestured to the bench. He sat, keeping proper distance but close enough to talk quietly. For a minute, they just watched Marcus play. I had a daughter, Min said finally. She'd be your son's age now. Maybe a little older. Lena's stomach dropped. Min, you don't have to. Her name was Hannah. Flower. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. They gripped his knees tight enough to blanch. Rival faction. 5 years ago. They wanted to hurt the boss, weaken his position. So they targeted families. Made examples. I'm so sorry. My wife left after. Couldn't look at me without seeing what we'd lost. I stayed because... He gestured vaguely at the compound. This is all I know. But watching you with your son, with the boss's children, it reminds me why we fight. Not for territory or money. For this. He nodded at Marcus, now trying to climb a tree with more enthusiasm than skill. For moments like this. Does it get easier? Lena asked. The grief?
No.
But you learn to carry it differently. Min stood, checking his watch. Boss Choi's been quiet lately. Too quiet. Dr. Han thinks something's brewing. Dr. Han said that? He's loyal to Boss Quan, but he's not blind. The organization is unstable right now. Your presence has stirred things up. Min's expression was apologetic. Not your fault. Just reality. Should I be worried? You should be careful. Keep your son close. Trust your instincts. He started to walk away, then turned back. And know that not everyone here wants you gone. Some of us remember what we're protecting. Dr. Han arrived for the twins' checkup that afternoon. He was efficient as always, measuring, weighing, checking reflexes with practiced ease. But his eyes kept darting to the door, and his hands moved faster than necessary. They're thriving, he said, making notes on his tablet. Whatever you're doing is working remarkably well. I'm just giving them what they need. It's more than that. Dr. Han glanced at the door again, then lowered his voice. Miss Carter, I need you to understand something. Boss Choi, rival faction leader, has been unusually interested in the compound's activities. My contacts suggest he's planning something significant. Lena's arms instinctively wrapped around the nearest twin. Planning what? I don't know specifics. But you're... He chose his words carefully. You're a variable he didn't anticipate. A weakness he can exploit. I should leave then. Take Marcus and... If you leave, the twins' health could deteriorate. You've become essential to their survival. Dr. Han packed his equipment with jerky movements. But if you stay, you might not survive what's coming. I can't tell you which choice is right. I can only tell you to be ready. He left quickly, professionally, as though they discussed nothing more serious than feeding schedules. But Lena's hands were shaking when she lifted the twin back into his crib. Marcus found Quan in his office that evening. Lena had been looking for her son, panicking when he wasn't in his room, only to discover him standing in front of the compound's most dangerous man. Are you a king? Marcus asked, tilting his head up to look at Quan. Quan glanced at Lena in the doorway, something like amusement flickering across his features. Something like that. My mama says you saved us. So you're a good king. Your mama saved my family first. Marcus considered this with a seriousness only 4-year-olds could muster. Then we're even. That's what friends do. The word, friends, landed like a stone in still water. Quan's expression shifted through several emotions before settling on something Lena couldn't quite read. He crouched down to Marcus's level, a gesture that probably violated every security protocol he'd ever written. Do you know what friends do, Marcus? They help each other. And they don't lie. And they share snacks. Smart boy. Quan's voice was different around her son. Gentler. Less weighted with violence. Tell me, do you like your room? It's big, but kinda empty. What would make it better? Marcus's eyes lit up. Books. And maybe some cars? The kind you can build. Have you ever felt like an outsider trying to protect what you love? Comment your experience and where you're watching from. Quan stood, nodding once. Consider it done. That night, 3 boxes arrived at Marcus's door. Books about space and dinosaurs and adventure. Building sets that would take weeks to complete. A new stuffed elephant, higher quality than the worn one from home. But Marcus kept both. Mr. Quan gave me presents, Marcus told Lena at bedtime, hugging both elephants. That was kind of him. Do you think he's lonely? Big houses make people lonely sometimes. That's what Mrs. Chen always said. Out of the mouths of babes. Lena kissed her son's forehead, turned off the light, and wondered if a mafia boss had ever had a real friend in his life. The week that followed felt like borrowed time. False security wrapped in routine. Lena fell into rhythms. Twins waking at 4 and 7 and 10. Marcus's breakfast at 8. Garden time before the heat peaked. The compound staff began acknowledging her presence with small nods instead of hostile silence. Quan appeared more frequently. Sometimes in the nursery, watching her settle his sons. Sometimes in the garden, where he'd stand at a distance while Marcus played. Once, memorably, trying to burp a twin and failing spectacularly. Pat, don't pound, Lena corrected, trying not to laugh at his expression of focused concentration. I am patting. You're administering corporal punishment to an infant's back. Quan adjusted his technique, and the twin promptly spit up on his shoulder. The look of betrayal on his face made Lena lose her composure entirely. You think this is funny? But his tone held no real anger. I think you're learning. That's good. He handed her the baby, accepting a burp cloth with the kind of resignation that suggested he was reassessing every life choice. How do you make this look easy? Practice. And lower standards. She wiped the twin's mouth, cooing softly. Besides, he likes you. He wouldn't barf on just anyone. I'm honored, but he smiled when he said it. Stayed longer than necessary, watching her move through childcare tasks with the same focus he probably applied to strategic planning. Learning. Adapting. Becoming a father instead of just a boss. The advisors came on Thursday. 3 older Korean men in expensive suits, faces carved from disapproval. They found Lena at breakfast with Marcus, and their expressions suggested she'd personally insulted their ancestors. Boss Quan. The eldest, Advisor Park, spoke in English, though his accent was thick. We must discuss staffing arrangements. My son's caretaker is not a staffing issue. With respect, boss, there are more appropriate options. Women from good families who understand our culture, our traditions. My sons are alive because of her. That's all you need to know. Park's jaw tightened. The organization is talking. This situation will be seen as weakness by our enemies. Let them see what they want. My son's health is not negotiable. The advisors left, but not before Park muttered something in Korean, low enough that he probably thought she couldn't hear. She didn't understand the words, but tone translated perfectly. Disgust. That night, Quan found her in the garden after Marcus was asleep. The twins were with the nurse for once, giving Lena a rare moment alone. She was staring at the koi pond, watching fish circle in eternal patterns. My advisors are concerned, Quan said, joining her at the water's edge. Your advisors think I'm contaminating your bloodline. They're traditionalists, stuck in old ways. And you're not. Quan was quiet. I built my organization on strength and fear. I've made decisions that would horrify most people, but I'm not blind. He turned to face her. You've given my sons something I never could, the knowledge that they're wanted. Not as heirs or symbols, but as children who deserve love. The words hung between them, intimate and dangerous. Lena felt the charge in the air, the same electricity that had been building since that first night in the hospital. Your world nearly got my son killed, she said quietly. The threats, the enemies. Then I'll make it safer.
For all of you.
You can't promise that. Watch me. They were standing too close. She could see the pulse in his throat, count the shallow breaths he took. His hand lifted, hovering near her face, not quite touching, not quite retreating. One of the twins cried from the nursery window above. The spell broke. Kwan's hand dropped. Lena stepped back, reality crashing down like cold water. I should. Yes. She fled toward the house, but felt his eyes on her back the entire way. Later, when she was feeding the twin who'd cried, she touched her own cheek where his hand had almost been and wondered what she was becoming in this place. Marcus asked the question 3 days later, at bedtime, voice sleepy and innocent. Mama, is Mr. Kwan gonna be my new daddy? Lena's hands stilled on the blanket she'd been tucking around him. Baby, why would you ask that? 'Cause he looks at you the way Daddy looked at you in the picture. Before he left.
Her throat closed.
Marcus was 4. He shouldn't be able to read adult tensions and translate them into simple truths. But children saw what adults tried to hide. Mr. Kwan and I were just. It's okay if you like him, Mama. He's nice. And he's not mean to you like Daddy was sometimes. Lena kissed her son's forehead, unable to form words. Marcus fell asleep quickly, but she sat in the dark long after, wondering how to protect a 4-year-old's heart from a world built on violence. Down the hall, she didn't know that Jean stood in the shadows, phone pressed to his ear. Tomorrow, he said in Korean, voice low. The woman takes the boy to the garden every afternoon at 3 p.m. Minimal guards. Boss Kwan will be in the city for the council meeting. The voice on the other end, Boss Choi, was satisfied. Perfect. Make it look like an accident. A tragic misunderstanding. And Jean, you'll be rewarded beyond your dreams. Jean ended the call, pocketed the phone, and walked his normal patrol route. Just another guard doing his job. No one would suspect until it was too late. Marcus run. The explosion wasn't loud, just a controlled crack as the garden wall buckled inward. Lena's scream tore through the afternoon stillness, her body already moving before her mind caught up. Marcus had been 10 feet away, playing with his toy cars near the koi pond. Now he was frozen, eyes wide with terror as black vans poured through the opening. Guardman drew his weapon, but the shot came first. He went down hard, blood blooming across his shoulder. Not fatal, calculated. They wanted him alive to watch. 8 men in tactical gear flooded the garden. Professional, efficient. They moved like water around obstacles, weapons trained on Lena and the twins in their stroller. She pushed the stroller behind her, grabbed Marcus's arm, pulled him close. The last man out of the lead van moved differently, slower, confident. He wore an expensive suit despite the violence, his face sharp and cruel in the dappled sunlight. Boss Choi, Mrs. Carter. His English was perfect, accent minimal. I've heard so much about you. Get away from us. Such fire. Choi smiled, circling like a predator who'd already won. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to use you. Lena's arm tightened around Marcus. The 4-year-old was shaking, trying to be brave but failing. Behind her, the twins began crying. Not their normal fussing, but the high-pitched wail of distress that made her bones ache. What do you want? What everyone wants.
Power.
Leverage. Control. Choi gestured at the twins. Those children are Boss Kwan's greatest weakness. But you, he stepped closer. You're the crack in his armor. The foreign woman, the outsider, the symbol of everything wrong with his leadership. My people will take photos of me, rescuing these heirs from their kidnapper. Your reputation destroyed, Kwan's leadership questioned, his organization fractured. You're insane. I'm strategic. One of Choi's men moved toward the stroller. Lena shifted, putting herself between him and the babies. They know me. If you take them, they'll cry themselves sick. You can't fake maternal comfort. Choi laughed. You think Boss Kwan cares about their comfort? He cares about legacy, about power. Right now, you're his biggest liability. Min groaned from where he'd fallen. Blood pooled beneath him, but he was conscious, trying to reach his phone with his good hand. One of Choi's men kicked it away casually. Don't touch him. Marcus's small voice cut through the tension. The boy pulled away from Lena, ran to Min. He's hurt. You're bad man. Choi's expression shifted. Grab the boy. No. The man who reached for Marcus was fast, but Lena was faster. She lunged, got between them, took a backhanded strike that split her lip and filled her mouth with blood. The impact spun her sideways, but she stayed on her feet. Behind her, the twins' crying intensified. That distress wail that meant more than discomfort, meant danger recognized on some primal level. Mama. Marcus was crying now, trying to reach her. Lena spat blood, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Give me my son, and I'll quiet them. Otherwise, they'll alert every guard in this compound. You have maybe 2 minutes before Kwan's entire security force converges. Choi's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected resistance. Hadn't factored in that maternal instinct could be weaponized. The twins' screaming was getting louder, and in the distance, she could hear running footsteps, shouted orders. Shut them up, Choi ordered his men.
They tried.
2 of them approached the stroller, reaching for the babies with hands trained for violence, not comfort. The twins' cries became shrieks. One of them, the boy who'd fed from her first in the hospital, started turning blue at the lips. You're killing them. Lena's voice cracked. They're going into distress. Let me. A gunshot split the air. Not from Choi's men. From the house. Kwan appeared on the second-floor balcony, rifle raised, flanked by a dozen guards. His face was a mask of fury so absolute it seemed to warp the air around him. He'd left for the city council meeting 20 minutes ago. Should have been gone for hours. But he'd turned back. Some instinct. Some warning. Let them go. His voice carried across the garden with lethal quiet.
Now.
Choi grabbed Lena, arm around her throat, gun to her temple. One step closer, and I blow her brains across your pretty garden. The twins were still screaming. Marcus was crying. Min was trying to stanch his own bleeding with one hand. The whole scene was chaos wrapped in violence, and Lena could feel Choi's pulse racing against her back. She's not worth it, Choi continued, voice loud enough for Kwan to hear.
She's foreign.
An outsider. Let me take the children, and you can rebuild your reputation. Find a proper Korean woman to raise your heirs. Kwan's rifle didn't waver. I'll give you one more chance. Or what? You'll shoot through her to get to me? That's the Kwan I know.
Cold.
Calculating. Tell me, is this woman really worth starting a war over? In that moment, suspended between violence and choice, Lena made her decision. She'd spent her whole life being careful, playing it safe, surviving. But Marcus was 10 feet away with a gun pointed at his head by one of Choi's thugs. The twins were shutting down from stress. Min was bleeding out. Careful wasn't going to save anyone. She started singing. The same lullaby from the hospital. Low and bluesy and born in pain. Her grandmother's voice, her great-grandmother's voice, generations of survival compressed into melody. The twins' crying faltered. Not stopped, but shifted. Their primal recognition of safety cutting through terror. Choi's grip loosened slightly, confusion at the bizarre tactic. Lena dropped her weight suddenly, breaking his hold. Grabbed the nearest twin from the stroller. Her hands knew which one, the boy who'd fed first, and ran toward Marcus. Not away from the danger. Toward her son. Gunfire erupted. Min, wounded and furious, shot the thug holding Marcus. The man went down, and Marcus scrambled free. Lena caught him with her free arm. The twin pressed against her chest, her body shielding both children. Kwan's guards descended like a storm. They poured from the house, from hidden positions in the garden, from places Lena hadn't known existed. The compound had been a fortress all along. She'd just never seen its teeth. But Kwan himself vaulted the balcony railing, dropped 2 stories in a controlled fall that should have broken bones, and came up running. Not toward his men.
Toward Choi.
You threatened MY family. He hit Choi with the full force of decades-honed violence. No guns now. This was personal. fists and fury, and the kind of brutality that made his reputation. Choi fought back, trained, skilled, dangerous in his own right. But Kwon fought like a man with everything to lose. "She's not your family," Choi gasped between blows, blood streaming from his nose. "She's a stranger. You've gone soft over some." Kwon's fist connected with his jaw. "She's more family than you'll ever understand." The fight was short, brutal, definitive. When it ended, Choi was on the ground, conscious but broken. Kwon stood over him, chest heaving, knuckles split and bleeding. "Take him," he ordered his guards. "Lock him down. I'll deal with him later." Choi's men had already surrendered or fled. The garden was suddenly quiet except for Marcus's sobbing and the remaining twins crying from the abandoned stroller. Lena was on her knees, one child in each arm now, her son pressed against her side. Min was being tended by a medic who'd appeared from nowhere. The shoulder wound was bad, but survivable. He'd live to protect another day. Kwon crossed to Lena in 3 strides, dropped to his knees beside her. His hands hovered over her face, the split lip, the bruise already forming on her cheekbone, but didn't touch, as if contact might shatter something fragile. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. The kids are safe. Because of you." His voice was rough. "You ran toward danger. For my son. For Marcus. And yours. For all of them." Something in his expression cracked. He pulled her against him, careful of the children between them, but desperate nonetheless. Lena felt the tremor in his arms, the fear he'd been holding back now flooding through. "I almost lost you," he whispered against her hair. "All of you. If I hadn't turned back. But you did." They stayed like that for a long moment, a collision of worlds that should never have touched. Marcus squirmed between them, still scared but soothed by his mother's presence. The twins had finally quieted, their distress fading now that safety had returned. When they separated, Kwon's eyes held something raw, something he'd probably never shown another person. "Jean betrayed us," he said quietly. "He's the one who gave Choi your schedule. He's already been dealt with." Lena didn't ask what dealt with meant. Some things were better left unknown. The medical tent was chaos controlled by efficiency. Field medics worked on Min's shoulder, checking Marcus for injuries, examining the twins for trauma. Lena refused treatment until everyone else had been seen, stubborn despite the pain in her ribs where Choi's man had struck. "You have a cracked rib," the medic said finally, when she'd run out of excuses. "Possibly 2. You need rest." Later. "Miss Carter." Later. Kwon appeared with Marcus's stuffed elephant, found during the cleanup. He knelt beside the boy, handing it over with unexpected gentleness. "You were very brave," he told Marcus. "I was scared. Brave means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. You protected Min. That's courage." Marcus clutched his elephant, lower lip trembling. "Are the bad men gone?"
"Yes. They won't hurt you again."
"I promise." "How do you know?" Kwon's expression was truth, without sugarcoating. "Because I won't let them. That's what kings do. They protect their people." Marcus considered this with the gravity of childhood. "Then you're a good king." That night, after Marcus finally fell asleep and the twins were settled with the nurse, Kwon found Lena on the balcony, overlooking the garden. Workers were already repairing the wall. By morning, there would be no evidence of the attack except the memories. "You should be resting," he said, joining her at the railing. "So should you." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the compound return to its false peace. Lena's ribs ached with each breath, but the pain was distant, manageable. Everything hurt less when you'd survived. "I told myself you were here for my sons," Kwon said finally. His voice was different in the dark, vulnerable, that this was transactional, a necessity. Was it?
"No."
He turned to face her. "Not for a long time." Lena's heart was beating too fast. "I should leave. This world nearly killed my son today. Your enemies will keep coming, and Marcus." "Don't." The word was raw, desperate. "Please don't leave. Give me one reason why I should stay." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the cuts on his knuckles from Choi's teeth, the exhaustion carved into his features, the fear he'd been fighting since the moment he'd seen her in that garden. "Because I can't do this without you." My sons need you. He stopped. Started again. I've built my life on control and power and fear. But you made me want something else. Something I didn't know I could have. What? A family. Not a legacy. A family. The words hung between them like a bridge across impossible distance. Lena felt tears burning behind her eyes, for the life she'd left, for the danger she'd survived, for the future she couldn't quite believe in. This doesn't fix anything, she whispered. Your world is still dangerous. Then I'll make it safer.
For you.
For all of them. You can't promise that. Watch me. He kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative. Desperate and earned and absolutely necessary. Like drowning people finding air. Years of touch starvation, mutual protection, and respect compressed into contact. His hands cradled her face, careful of her injuries, but possessive nonetheless. She gripped his shirt, pulling him closer despite her cracked ribs, despite every reason this was impossible. They kissed like survival, like choice, like the beginning of something that would either save them or destroy them both. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Quan rested his forehead against hers.
Stay, he said again.
Please. Lena opened her mouth to answer. Boss. A guard burst onto the balcony. Phone extended. You need to see this. Quan took the phone, tension returning to his shoulders. Lena watched his face change as he read. Watched color drain from his features. What is it? He handed her the phone without speaking. The message was simple. Photos attached. Old surveillance footage. Her apartment from 3 years ago. Her with a man, Marcus's father, wearing colors she recognized now. Rival gang insignia. The kind that declared allegiance. The text below was worse. We know where you came from. We know who you really are. Boss Quan will too, if you don't leave in 3 days. Your past isn't dead. It's just been waiting. Below it, another photo. Her with Marcus's father at what looked like a gang meeting. Her face younger, more scared, but present.
There.
Lena's hands shook. The phone slipped through her fingers, clattered on the stone balcony. Who was he? Quan's voice was carefully controlled. Dangerously controlled. Marcus's father. I didn't know what he was involved in. I swear I didn't. What gang? She couldn't say it. Couldn't form the words that would destroy everything. Quan picked up the phone, zoomed in on the insignia. His expression went cold.
Distant.
The warmth from moments ago evaporated like it had never existed. The black serpents. Not a question. Statement of fact. Choi's primary allies. I left him before Marcus was born. I didn't know. Whether you knew doesn't matter. His voice was ice now. What matters is that my enemies have leverage. They'll use your past to destroy my reputation, question my judgment, fracture my organization from within. Then I'll leave. Tonight. Take Marcus and disappear. You think you can run from this? He gestured at the phone. They found you once. They'll find you again. Use you against me whether you're here or gone. So, what do we do? Quan's jaw was granite. We prepare for war. He walked away, leaving Lena alone with the weight of secrets she'd thought buried. Below, in the garden where she'd nearly died, workers finished repairing the wall. But some breaks couldn't be fixed with money and manpower. She thought she'd escaped her past. But in this world, the past never stayed buried. It came back armed,